how to hold your team accountable. The difference between accountability and micromanaging really is just one thing. It's a documented process. You're not micromanaging because you're necessarily controlling, at least we don't want to think ourselves that way. You're more likely micromanaging because your team, they really have no clarity. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to help your team make decisions without hovering like a cloud over everything that they do. We work a lot with contractors. I remember walking into a contracting business one time. We got to talking with one of the executives of the company, and wasn't the owner, but he was an executive, and he had a real desire for us to be able to work with him. Well, we found out in the past that if it's not the owner we're working with, typically it's tough to get the buy-in of the owner. Why? Because there's ego there. It's tough to be able to get in there. And I distinctly remember asking the question to this particular key leader. I was like, hey, what's the biggest roadblock that you guys face in the business? He looked that way, and he pointed straight at the owner's office and basically said, that guy. And you don't want to be that guy. You know, we've heard that said before. And so what ended up happening, I got to give credit to that guy because that particular owner made a decision really because he wanted to exit his business at some point, but he made his decision that he did want to run a business that could run and grow with or without him being the bottleneck, the hub, the sort of the central figure of everything that happened in the business. And he did have to sidestep ego just a little bit. And to his credit, he started to really build a business that could run and grow with or without him. He had to confront this demon of micromanagement and realize that does not put him in a heroic position. What it does is actually puts him in a position where he becomes a victim or a villain at some point in the leadership of his business. And what that will do is begin to corrode the culture. So if you were that kind of owner, that's okay. Let's just confess and admit it, because if you're the bottleneck type of owner, what you're going to do is create a corrosive culture that ultimately you're not going to have a business that you're going to be proud of, nor will you have a business that you can leave and it will run and grow with or without you. We also need to say this about micromanagement. Micromanagement is not the issue. Micromanagement is usually a symptom of a far deeper issue. And so it's just this thing that we see, it's this thing that we feel. It is the most felt issue that team members will have. I feel micromanaged. But the reality is usually micromanagement exists because there is a vacuum that it's looking to fill. And we need to identify that vacuum and how you can be a great, healthy leader without being a pesky micromanager. So here's what I want to do. When we're talking about this issue or symptomatic issue of micromanagement, it lends itself back to something that's very tactile. And I want to get to that. But before we do, I want to pull the camera back. I want to get in the plane and go up 50,000 feet above the clouds and look at business as a whole. Because a lot of times what happens in business is we get into business without understanding how business operates. It's like being a physician and trying to diagnose somebody without understanding the basics of the human body. Understanding that there is a skeletal system, there is an endocrine system, a cardiovascular system. So there's these 11, 12 systems that make up the interior of the human body or even the exterior of the human body. But if a physician does not understand the interplay of those systems and how those systems work, then one particular symptom, they're not going to know how to treat that particular symptom because they don't know where it sits within the whole. So let's take the metaphor and let's apply it to business. Your business is an organism. It is a set of systems. And I want to give you 3 major elements that those systems can be categorized into. The first and largest, this is what we call the operating system of your business. It's kind of like a computer or your phone or your tablet. And that is when you hit the power button, it boots up. Well, without an operating system in your device, then there's nothing for you to interface with, to go back and forth with. It's just a blank black screen with a cursor on it that's waiting for input until you tell it what to do. Well, the operating system is really nice because it's a recurring methodology telling everybody in the business what to do on repeat. So we break it down into 4 foundational cornerstones: purpose, people, process, and profit. So those are our categories to work within. And then within purpose, we have things like vision, mission, value. Vision tells us where's the business going. Mission, why are we doing this? Values, how we make decisions. The cultural elements, the handbook. These are the different policies that we talk about all the time. So that's an example of the purpose vertical. Then you have the people vertical, org charts, job roles, hiring process, etc. You have the profit vertical at the end, cash, bank accounts, these dashboards, budgets, accounting software, all that stuff is in that profit vertical. And then we have the process vertical, which actually leads us to our second major category. So if we have the 4 Ps, that leads us into what we call the 4 core. And so our master process roadmap is the home for the 4 core systems in this order. You ready? Marketing, sales, operations, administration, and admin incorporates accounting and HR and that sort of thing. So those 4 core systems in that order. Marketing must come before sales. Sales must come before the delivery or the operations, and operations must come before the administrative part, where we're kind of keeping it all together. So you've got your first major category of your operating system, your second of your process roadmap. The third is what we call the anchor. We used to call it the culture calendar. It's basically the repetitive cycle on a spreadsheet of how you ensure that all the things you built in the operating system and all the things you built in the process roadmap all get in one place where they can repetitively, predictably, and meaningfully be trained and held accountable. So you've got the tools to run the business, the processes to run the product, and you've got the recurring accountability to make sure all that stuff gets done. Okay, so remember, we're 50,000 feet above the business right now so that we can come back down to try to root out the what's causing that symptomatic response of micromanagement around this idea of accountability. So now if we were to come in and zoom in on the operating system under the people vertical, purpose, people, process, and profit, we'll see a tool. There's a core tool of one of the 28, 29, 30 tools that are in that operating system, and it's called the scorecard or the role scorecard. So once we have an org chart that tells people what roles exist in the business and where they fit, then we have a job role that tells each individual role exactly the task they're responsible for. Then we need to help that role understand at what frequency or recurringness does that task help. Is it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it might be. And so that's where a role scorecard comes in. Super simple, and with AI, it will help you. All you need to do is this: create a unique custom job role. And usually I know that's hard for people as well. So you create a custom job role exactly around the tasks that need to be done by that particular job. We're then going to take it and we're going to go to AI. We're going to say, hey, AI, I need you to build for me a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, I need you to break it down into daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually. So those categories, I need you to take all these tasks on this job role and categorize them out into those different categories within our role scorecard. And then I need you to create 52 weeks across the year and show me the weeks that these things need to be done. Some need to be done every day, so they're just going to be in every single week that are there. Some need to be done every other week, so they'll be in the boxes of every other week. Again, no expensive software, just use a simple spreadsheet to be able to do this. And what you have done is created a role scorecard. And so that role not only sees what they're responsible for in the job role itself, but they can see that job role played out and subdivided into the recurringness and the frequency that they're supposed to be doing that job role. And there's one other element that will bring and close the loop of that accountability. Now, in our business, we always go on the hunt to find, not only in ours, but in yours as well, what we call the big five feedback loop. So it's like when you go hunting down in South Africa and you're hunting the big five, the elephant and the tiger and whatever else is there. Well, when we go into a business, we're hunting the big five. Once weekly team meetings, once weekly departmental meetings, twice monthly executive meetings, twice monthly one-on-one check-ins, and once annually performance reviews. If you have those 5 meeting structures in the anatomy of your business, then you have created a closed loop that when information gets shared, it's hard to leak at that point and get lost. And so we've got good accountability when it comes to that. So what I want you to do is I want you to take the scorecard that you made, and then twice a month, I want you to have a one-on-one 15 to 20-minute check-in with your direct reports. That's it, all right? And so you're going to sit down, you're going to start with big wins, take about 30 seconds. Hey, tell me a big win that since we've been together in the last couple of weeks here, something personal or professional. And then we're going to dive into our accountability time. The first part of your accountability time is reviewing the scorecard briefly. Hey, any questions you had, any gaps, any things you ran into, just 2 or 3 minutes, not very long. And then you're going to ask some key questions. Number 1, what are you seeing and thinking right now? It's a very broad question, and intentionally so. You just want them to give you some feedback on anything that they see. Number 2, what are blind spots that either we have or I have right now? Allow them vulnerability to give you feedback. Number 3, what do you need from me? And number 4, here's what I see and here's what I need from you. It gives you a chance as well to give them feedback on what you're seeing in their role as well. So they've got a job role. They've got a role scorecard, shows them when to do the how, right? And then you've got a one-on-one personal check-in. Oh my gosh, does that mean I need to meet with everybody? Remember what I said, just your direct reports. Well, everybody's my direct reports. Then we've got another job to do. We need to start delegating responsibility to other people who will then oversee some of these people as well. We have a team of 12, just to give you an example. And in our team of 12, we have 3 in particular that I spend the majority of my time with that they oversee the remaining 8, not including me, of the team that's there. I think my math worked out right there. I've delegated authority. So the word actually is to deputize. If you go look at that word deputy, like a sheriff's department, the sheriff has deputized authority, not only given them responsibility, but also giving them the extension of authority to make decisions in their stead. And so in order to give proper accountability without micromanagement, we've got to be able to do that with our team. Hey, I want to draw your attention to a video that I've got in the description link below, because remember when we went up 60,000 feet? I want to walk you through a masterclass that I have built. Now, I want to warn you, when you get there, it's going to be a long video, but it's by design, because I'm going to give you soup to nuts how to run a construction company. Not to say you don't know how, but it's going to give you some tips and allow yourself to run a little audit on where you're at versus what I lay out for you. It'll just be you and I in a video that you can watch. I want you to get your notebook and click on the link below after you're done with this video so you can go see that. Why are we doing all this? Talking about accountability and micromanagement. Why will this help you? Because many contractors live their day-to-day life in chaos, and we want you to be liberated from that chaos so that you can make time for the things that matter most.